So when you break business down into a very basic level, because I feel like a lot of us will view business as kind of this overarching complex thing that is hanging over our heads. We're trying to figure it out. I used to describe business as trying to put together a 1,000 piece puzzle, and all the puzzle pieces are scattered across the city and you got to go drive and find them. And to be honest, I feel like that is incorrect. I feel like this whole time business is actually more simple than what any of us have ever thought of business to be. And I think it's because when you break business down into a very basic level, there's really one driving factor that is the difference between somebody who is very, very successful and somebody who's not. And honestly, this one word, it's haunted me. It's haunted me in my business. It is this lingering thing that I know that I need to be doing. And I am just somebody who gets distracted. I'm somebody who wants to try a bunch of different things. I'm somebody who is wanting to, try this and try that. And it's just who I am. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are that way, especially if you also have ADHD. But I feel like it's definitely an entrepreneurial trait because we have that drive and all of the ideas within us. And in case you're wondering, the word that haunts me in my business is consistency. Consistency is something, I feel like it goes hand in hand with discipline, but consistency, I feel like, is driving you towards being consistent with one thing. And if you're an entrepreneur like me, you know it is very, very challenging to just be focused on one thing when there are endless possibilities. Because for me, I didn't know this when I was growing up. I thought that I was going to find a career that it was going to be something that I at least was mildly interested in, pretty good at, and wanting to pursue. But what I really wanted was the freedom to explore my creativity and my ideas and things that I wanted to pursue. And business allows me to be able to do that. But the hard part is that you have to have this balance between that creative drive of wanting to try new things and that discipline to stay consistent with one specific area so that you can be successful. Because if we're looking at what are we wanting in business, like if you were to start a candle business, what is your ultimate goal? Probably your ultimate goal is to make money with your candle business, and that money is going to do XYZ for you in your life. But if we're thinking about how are we going to get there? So I think about two different things when it comes to consistency. I feel like it's kind of this overarching thing with the business that is going to be the most beneficial for all of us with our business. But consistency, I look at it as we want to have consistent sales. We want to have consistent viewers on our website. We want to have consistently people converting to people purchasing from us. We want to have consistent people coming to our booth at farmers markets. We want to have consistent attendees at our local candle making workshops. Consistency is the common denominator amongst every area in business, because if we're looking at, okay, if we want to have consistent sales, then we have to backtrack and say, okay, me as a business owner, I have to be consistent then. I have to be consistent with sending out emails. I have to be consistent with, reaching out to people for wholesale. I have to be consistent with, posting on social media. And a lot of times we will be consistent for a short amount of time. And the people that end up doing really, really well in business end up doing the type of consistency that most people are not wanting to do. I am speaking to myself today too, by the way, guys. I am somebody who absolutely needs to work on this. I very much struggle with this, and I am the first to admit that I struggle with consistency. I struggle with saying that I'm going to work on something. I'll work on it for the next few days, maybe a week, maybe a tad longer, but by the time it gets to that point, it is very redundant. I don't do well with things that are redundant. I like the novelty, I like the newness, I like the excitement of it. And to be honest, that is not a recipe for being very, very successful in business. It doesn't mean that you can't ever go outside of the box and try new things, because definitely with business, you want to be able to do that. But if you're focused on something to see if it works, you have to be consistent with doing it to see if you're actually going to get the payoff. So if you want to see if you can really grow your social media, then you have to be posting at least once a day on your social media I feel like there's people out there that are saying, oh, that's too much, post like 3 times a week. You can research the algorithm to see, but I say the more you post, the more chances that people are going to find your content. So as long as you're not posting like 20 times a day, like just overwhelming your page, I would say, 4 to 7 times a week on your Instagram is probably a great place to start. But again, it has to be consistent. And I've told myself that many times. I'm going to be consistent with email marketing. I'm going to be consistent with posting on Instagram and TikTok. And I am until I'm not. And that is the issue. And it's interesting because when I look at people that are really successful and I think to myself, wow, I think it's because they have the discipline in order to be consistent. So that's why the word is kind of 2 words. It's consistency and discipline. But I want to say consistency because you can be disciplined, but maybe you're doing the wrong things, or maybe you're disciplined in working and trying to do all the things that you want to do. Whereas consistency might just be being consistent on one area of focus, even if it's for a month or 2 months and you have a set date. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe that's what I should do, is set a deadline or a date where I am going to be working on something. But to be honest, you guys, I know myself so well, and I just don't know if I am capable of that. I like to say that I'm capable of a lot of things, but I have to be insanely honest with myself that I don't know if I could just focus on one area of my business and not focus on anything else for like 60 days. That would be very hard. But again, I feel like this is also where people end up excelling in that part. So I think it would just be, I would have to figure out a way to get myself excited for that area of my business every single day. And that would be a challenge that I would have to do myself. It would be more of me having to get through the natural obstacles that I possess within my personality and just how my brain works and everything. I feel like my brain does work fairly well with a lot of things in business, but I feel like I've been stuck at this point where we are in business because of my weaknesses, if you know what I mean. And I know we all have them, and I can't be too hard on myself for that, but I have to be able to self-analyze. And I think that that's something that is really important for all of us. So if you are stuck in your business, if you're feeling like you're not getting any sales, you are not where you want to be, it's really good to self-analyze, to figure out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, where do you need to maybe fill in the gaps of your business, where I really do think if I had the opportunity, if I had, not even the opportunity, if I had the extra cash flow to be able to invest into hiring somebody to basically take all of my ideas, take everything that I'm wanting to do and formulate it into a structured form and help me on a day-to-day basis on what I need to be doing and maybe even do a lot of that for me. But again, I'm nowhere near being able to hire somebody to be able to do that. So I wanted to bring up this video today because I love listening to other business podcasts and videos on YouTube. And when people talk about that, sometimes it takes a few times of hearing it, maybe even a few more than few times, like maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 times over the span of 6 years, maybe, to really have things sink in. It's kind of like how, if you've ever heard, people need to see an ad or hear something about a product 7 times before they make a purchase. Not everybody. Some people will make a purchase right away. Some people need to see an ad over the span of a few months, up to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. I feel like this is sometimes how it is when I learn information. So if I'm learning things about business and people are talking about things, and I've heard so many different things about business over the years, but the more that I think about it, the more I'm just like, is this more simple than how people make it out to be? Is it really just as simple as being consistent with one area of focus? Because I've seen people do really well, for example, on social media by just posting all the time. And that's how they've grown. That's how they get their sales. I've seen people do really well, of course, by running ads and they're just consistent. They're not running an ad for 3 days and then taking it down because they're not seeing the sales. They're running it for 3 months, and then they're getting that traction. The Facebook Meta, whatever, is learning who to show the ads to so that they are now building momentum and getting more sales from there. And it really is all about that consistency. So I guess this video is more of I'm talking to you, but also talking to myself and just kind of, sharing that I know what it's like to jump around and not really have that direction and wanting to try different things in your business, because although I think it is a great thing to expand and have different areas of focus on your business, it's very challenging to do all of those at once. So for instance, right now I want to set up our next candle making workshop, and I really want it to be a candle making and perfume oil duo. So I've kind of mastered the candle making workshop side, and now I want to bring on another product to kind of have as a, you start off with this, then you move on to this. It gives time for the candles to solidify, and I am excited to move forward with that. I've had, 5 or 6 different candle making workshops. So I've had some practice under my belt, and it's kind of, one of my areas of focus right now. I'm also, because this is just how my brain works, I'm also creating my next live online class that I'm going to be teaching. It's going to be based on like website creation, branding, all that kind of stuff with designing a website. I don't know exactly how I want to do it, but it's going to be something in that topic. So I just love putting things together like that. So it just helps my brain. If I don't have a project that I'm working on, I start to feel just really it's weird. I feel overwhelmed when I don't have anything to do, but I also feel overwhelmed when I have too many things to do. Maybe I feel underwhelmed. Maybe that's what it is I'm bored. And I need that direction. I need that goal. So although I am being consistent on those things, I feel like there's a lot of things that I could be better at when it comes to being consistent on it. And that just comes from being essentially, I'm not a one-woman business owner. Obviously, all of this was done by Chris, by the way. So he takes care of all of this, but there's a lot of stuff on the back end, things I'm creating and setting up and putting together that I will get together and put together myself. So there is a lot going on that side of things too. But I do think that consistency is a massive, massive driving factor to the businesses out there that are doing really well. Is they put a lot of time and energy into one area of focus with marketing and really went full force into it, as deep as they could go with that type of marketing. And I think that truly is a very simplistic view of business, and it doesn't have to be so complicated. You just have to stick with one thing long enough to see if it's actually going to work for you and your business. I hope you enjoyed my little chit chat today. It was just something that's on my mind. I just want to share and see if any of you out there relate to that as well, with the kind of trying different things in your business, wanting to do a bunch of different things. I'm sure a lot of us out there are like that, thinking that maybe business is really complex when maybe it's actually more simple than any of us thought. The more that I'm listening to more podcasts of what people are doing, they just stay consistent with the same thing, whether it's just giving out free products to, influencers and having affiliates. There are different ways of going about it. And I think that's probably the biggest struggle for all of us, is that there's no one clear path for business. Everybody does something a little bit different. And that is the part that we're trying to figure out. But it's never a waste if you are putting 100% of your effort in for a few months on one area of focus, just to see if it works for you before you try something else. But anyways, I'm going to end today's video right here, and I will see you in the next one.